Welcome, everyone. This is your host, Abraham L. Jaguar, a professional game master. First of all, this channel is proudly partnered with the What the Funk shop. Please check out their store for all sorts of products. They have dice, miniatures, game master screens, home decorations, and many other things. You'll find a link in the description and in the pinned comment. And make sure that you use my code for a special discount. Tonight, I am going to talk about something that was inspired by some things that I said during my live stream of Tormented Souls. If you haven't seen that live stream, please check out. I will put the link. I will put the link in the description. Two ways of handling divine spellcasting in tabletop role-playing games. Now, there are many tabletop RPGs out there with their own concepts of deities, the divine, the profane. Sometimes things can get a bit confusing, and I think it's much better for the consistency of the setting to play it as the setting expresses it. Not to say that that you shouldn't tweak, change, modify, remove, add things to the divine spellcasting systems or the interpretation of divine energies within the game world. But it's definitely more comfortable to keep things as they are presented in the setting. But there could be some moments where you want to apply your own interpretation of divine spellcasting. And perhaps you are using a system without a setting and you want to come up with a, if not original, different take on divine spellcasting for your particular world. So here are my two general ways of handling divine spellcasting. It's not like I use them all the time, but in moments of emergency, when I want to try out a system and the system doesn't have like a take, particular take on divine spellcasting or something that is tied completely to the game world, etc. There are two ways I handle it that I think are quite satisfactory. And it certainly helps because things can get murky in the case of arcane magic. Arcane magic is usually based on a pre-existing force. So how is that not divine? Like in Forgotten Realms, the spellcasters work with the weave, and the weave has a lot to do with the goddess Mistra. So you could say that the weave is divine. But here, like I said, two ways. The first way, the gods are entities similar to other living creatures, but and that doesn't necessarily mean that they inhabit the same plane of existence. They could be in another plane, another dimension, but they exist. Some perhaps they even eat or they sleep in their particular plane or realm or whatnot. Let's say they have an awareness. They are intelligent, conscient beings, beings with consciousness, with awareness, with perception. They usually have powers, resources, and advantages that you do not have. So, in the case of the followers of those deities, they usually it's usually an exchange between the deity and the player character. The deity has some sort of plan or agenda, and the player character is going to make sure that agenda, that purpose, that objective is successful or is constantly successful if it's something that needs to be perpetuated or maintained. And in exchange for that, the deity offers a portion of his or her resources, powers, whatever, to the player character. So there is that interaction between the player character and the deity itself. But there is another way to handle things. The deity has already established some sort of force, magical power upon the game world. And in the case of worlds that have several deities, several powers, several sources are available. So you do not need to be in a relationship, in a connection with the deity itself or himself or herself or whatever. Some of those beings are very weird. Imagine a setting with Lovecraftian like tentacled slime deities, right? The character doesn't necessarily need to be in a working relationship with that powerful being or entity. It could be that your character has found a way to tap into that particular divine source, or your character is acting, taking action in a way, thinking in a way, existing in a way, in harmony or in accordance with that particular deity's existence. And so now the character has access to that divine power. I think this second way of handling things is quite interesting because you could have like a tension, like a conflict between the deity and the player character, and still the player character is wielding part of the power, the resources, the magic, the divine magic, the divine spellcasting potential of that deity. So those are two basic ways, but like I said, so many settings out there with their own interpretation of how the different divine spellcasters siphon or draw in power from their deities and use that power according to their own will, or perhaps in more stricter settings, according to the will of that deity or entity or god or goddess or whatever. So this can easily be applied, and it's also like a source of adventurous hits. After all, in the case of a working relationship with the god or goddess, the player character wants to have that harmony between them. He doesn't want the god or goddess to stop sending that divine power his or her way. And in the other case, the other variant, your character, because maybe you fight for justice, maybe you promote love, maybe you encourage others to seek wisdom. You are in tune with the God of wisdom, the God of justice, the God of love, or whatever, and now you have access to that power, and therefore your missions, your quests are tied to love, to justice, to knowledge, wisdom, whatever. So there is a certain richness to things overall. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was informative and entertaining. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, consider joining as a member using the super thanks button. Take a look at the information in the description, the pinned comment. This has been your host, Abraham L. Jaguar. And remember, in tabletop role-playing games, you are not telling stories about your characters. You're experiencing the game world as your characters. Once again, thank you and see you later.